Page number 66, continued. Fiction. The fiction of the age of Elizabeth is generally romantic in nature, in the sense that it is of a kind of romance. Many forms of fiction were practiced in this age. Some important forms and their practitioners are as follows. 1. The romances of Lilly, Green and Lodge. 2nd. The pastoral romance of Sir Philip Sidney. 3rd. The picturesque novel of Nashe, Nashe. And number 4. The realistic novel of Delany, Delony. Joel Lilly, 1554 to 1606. Lilly in his romance displays all the peculiarities of Elizabethan prose. At the age of 24, he came out with his Euphues, or The Anatomy of Wit, in 1578, which took England by storm. This work, which may only very roughly be termed as the first English prose novel, was an agglomeration of 1,000 elements, made of them alien to the nature of the novel proper. The plot of the work is the simplest imaginable. End of page 66. Now page 67. Euphues is a man of learning and culture belonging to Athens, which evidently stands for Oxford. He goes to Naples, which stands for London, to lead a life of pleasure. There he becomes intimate friends with a young man, Philotas, who introduces him to his fiancée Lucilla. Euphues attracts Lucilla's love, and the two friends exchange taunting letters, but Lucilla plays him false and elopes with the stranger. Euphues, heartbroken, returns to Athens, and he and Philotas become friends again. The plot is simple but very long. Essays on such topics as love and the education of children, with many rhetorical letters and lengthy dialogues, are grafted on to the thin stem of the story. In 1580, Lilly came out with a sequel, Euphues and His England, in which it is narrated the arrival of Philotas and Euphues in England, and Philotas's unsuccessful courtship of Camilla, a maid of honor to Queen Elizabeth. This volume pays a glowing tribute to the English nobility, particularly the courtiers. Lilly was, to quote Tucker Brooke, most careful to depict them, not as they were, but as they would have liked to have themselves regarded. To quote the same critic, in the last 15 pages, a portrait of Queen Elizabeth, probably the most elaborately flattering that much flattered sovereign ever received. What is remarkable about Lilly's work is not its matter, but its terribly manneristic prose style, which has come to be dubbed as euphemism. It came to be parodied and derided by a long chain of writers from Shakespeare to Scott, though it also excited imitation in a very large number of writers now justly forgotten. The cool Drayton declared that Lilly taught his countrymen to speak and write all like mere lunatics. Nevertheless, if Lilly was a lunatic, there was method in his madness. He did employ a well thought out plan which has the following characteristics. The first is the principle of symmetry and equipoise obtained generally by the employment of alliteration, balance, and antithesis. See, for instance, such an expression as hot liver of a heedless lover, or the description of Euphues as a young gallant of more wit than wealth, yet of more wealth than wisdom. Number 2. Secondly, there are the very numerous references to the classical authorities even for every well-known fact. Number 3. Thirdly, there is the mass of allusions to natural history, generally of the fabulous kind. All these devices are used for the purpose of decoration, but our complaint is that the style is over-decorated to the point of being monotonous and insipid, even though it affects the poetic beauties. To quote Compton Rickett, Lilly's style suffers from the serious defect of ignoring the distinction between prose and verse. It is the prose of an age that found its most effective medium in verse. Robert Greene, 1560 to 1592. Greene was a patent imitator of Lilly and later that of Sidney after he came to know of his Arcadia. Though in his actual life he was a debauch of the worst kind, yet in his works he was quite a didactic. His several novels include Pandosto, 1588, which very obviously furnished the plot for Shakespeare's A Winter's Tale. His other important works are Xenophon, 1591, Mammalia, 1583, and The Card of Fancy, which was published within a decade of Euphues, and as A.C. Ward says, reproduces its mannerisms of style, its elaborately artificial and voluble conversations, its classical embellishments, its images and comparisons from natural history. For Greene, like Lilly, drew upon Pliny, Pliny, its frequent and lengthy soliloquies. The frequency of letters may have furnished Richardson with the model of the epistolary novel. In his life and death of Ned Brown, a notorious pickpocket, Greene provides him hints for the low life scenes we meet with the novels of Smollett and Defoe. Thomas Lodge, 1558 to 1625. He was another writer of euphuistic novels, the best of which is Rosalind, Euphues' Golden Legacy, 1590. In his tricks of style, Lodge imitates Lilly, but his matter is derived from Greek pastoral romance. The work is significant because it furnished Shakespeare with the plot of As You Like It. Further, as it includes, like Greene, Xenophon, some very charming lyrics. Sir Philip Sidney, 1554 to 1586. Like Lilly, Sidney also prompted a number of ambitions. His Arcadia, 1590, is the first pastoral romance in English prose, just as Spenser's. The Shepherd's, Justice Spencer's The Shepherd's Calendar is the first verse pastoral romance. All the happenings of the story are envisaged in an imaginary land of idyllic beauty with shepherds, shepherdesses, running brooks, and lush library. It tells the story of Basileus, king of Arcadia, who settles in the village with his wife and two daughters named Pamela and Philoclea. End of page number 67. Now page number 68. Page number 68. Two princes from abroad came to Arcadia and started courting the two girls. One disguises himself as a shepherd and the other as an Amazon. Complications start when both Basileus and his wife fall in love with the Amazon, the former taking him to be a real Amazon, and the latter after discovering his real identity. Everything is finally unraveled by Euarchus, king of Macedonia and father of one of the princes. Everything ends happily. This was the first version of the Arcadia, known as the Old Arcadia. In the revised version, Sydney includes many complications and also added much symbolism and didacticism, which rendered it almost of the nature of the fairy queen. In the Arcadia, observes Daches, Daiches, ideal love, ideal friendship, and the ideal ruler are directly and indirectly discussed, suggested, and embodied. The style of the Arcadia is as artificial and attitudinized as that of Euphues. Euphues. It is, to quote Daches again, highly conceited, full of elaborate analogies, balanced parenthetical asides, pathetic fallacies, symmetrically answered clauses, and other devices of an immature prose entering suddenly into the world of conscious literary artifice. One of Sydney's constant devices is to take a word and, somewhat like Shakespeare, toss it about till its meaning is sucked dry. As an example of pathetic fallacy, consider his reference to the cool wine which seems to laugh for joy as it nears a lady's lips. Similarly, the water drops that slip down the bodies of dainty ladies seem to weep for sorrow. The name that a beautiful lady utters is perfumed by the scent of her breath. When the princesses put on their clothes, the clothes are described as glad, and so forth. Thomas Nashe, N-A-S-H-E, Nashe, 1567 to 1601. Nashe had a taste for buffoonery, satire, reckless savagism, and effrontery. He is best known for his vigorous pamphlets. He also wrote the first English picturesque novel, The Unfortunate Traveller, or The Life of Jack Wilton, in 1594, which is a tale of the adventures of a page named Wilton in the reign of Henry VIII. It was perhaps suggested by Spanish Lazarillo the Tormes. It has also been called the first English historical novel, as it introduces as characters such known figures of yore as Erasmus, Sir Thomas More, and the Earl of Surrey. But Nash jumbles up all the historical details with reckless abandon and responsibility without minding gross inaccuracies and anachronisms. The adventures of Jack Wilton take him through half of Europe, which, particularly Italy, is described with all its sordidness, crime, culture, and beauty. The novel has no form. It is made up of, to quote Crompton Rickett, a series of episodes lightly strung together. It is hopelessly incoherent at times. In his prose style, Nash follows neither Lily nor Green nor Sidney. His sentences are short and striking, but sometimes he is carried away by a flood of words. Nash says A.C. Ward was drunk with words, even besotted with them. Anyway, his strength was acknowledged by his contemporaries, and he had many imitators. Thomas Delany, Deloney, Delany, 1543 to 1600. Delany, a silk weaver by profession, exhibited an even weaker sense of form and structure than Nash. His three tales, Jack of Newbury, The Gentle Craft, and Thomas of Reading, all 1590, show him as a storyteller of the bourgeois craftsman. In the second named, he glorifies the craft of shoemakers. Delany's style is quite homely, and he was read and appreciated by a vast number of people, particularly craftsmen whom he had tried to flatter. In spite of his gifts of desert, he does not manage to give pattern, unity of action, or even unity of tone or mood in his stories. Non-fiction. Richard Hooker, 1554 to 1600. Hooker's masterly work of the laws of ecclesiastical polity is the greatest of the non-fictional prose works of the Elizabethan era. It began appearing volume by volume in 1594 and continued till the author's death. It was the first book in England and which used English for a serious philosophic discussion. Hooker was a Protestant who combined the piety of a saint with the simplicity of a child. His purpose in writing the book was to defend the Church of England and to support certain principles of church government. Harden Craig, in History of English Literature, edited by himself, maintains, quote, as originally written, the 8 books were already on the high level of theological and legal argument. The first book is neither of Hooker's. The first book is Hooker's famous general treatise on law. The second argues that divine law or scripture is not the only law that ought to serve for our direction in things celestial. The effect of the third is to give mind a reason to live. The effect of the third is to make the church an independent and self-directing social institution within the state. End of page number 68. Now page number 69. The fourth claims for the Church the right to adjust its position free on one side of Rome and on the other side of Geneva. The fifth book deals with the established practices of the Church of England. The fragmentary sixth is largely unreplaced. The fragmentary sixth is largely on penitence. The seventh treats the power and position of bishops, and the eighth is the most significant treatise on the relation of the Church to the secular government. Secular government say establish and control the Church, but declares that the powers of the crown are derived from the consent of the governed and expressed in a parliament of the people. Hooker modelled his style on Cicero. Though his diction was simple, yet the syntax highly Latinized, but not without any memory, and studied the first Latinized, but not without money and studied flow. The style is as much removed from the vulgarity as from pedantry. Ruskin was later to seize upon this style and use his mention. Bacon, 1516 to 1626, exactly opposite to Hooker's Ciceronian style, was Bacon's English prose style, which has been called style coup or anti-Ciceronian style. Much of what Bacon wrote appeared in the age of James I. However, the first edition of his essays appeared in 1597, that is, within the age of Elizabeth. Bacon borrowed the term and the conception of the essay from the French writer Montaigne, whose essays first appeared in 1580. In spite of the fact that Bacon took them slightly, his essays make pretty heavy reading. They are full of everyday speech, full of memorable aphorisms which have passed into everyday speech. The scope of his essays is vast, and they embrace all kinds of issues, but mostly those of practical life. By writing these essays, Bacon became the father of the English essay. Even though his essays differ from the kind which was later established in England, he is a worthy predecessor of the line of essays ranging from his own times up to ours. End of page number 69. This is the end of Chaucer to Shakespeare, chapter 1.